How do you feel like I've been prostituted? In front of the floor-to-ceiling window, watching Zhou Wenxiong get into a taxi and leave without looking back, Eric couldn't help muttering to himself. He originally thought that the other party was someone like Lu Xiaoli, but it didn't look like it. Zhou Wenxiong is more like a person who pursues opportunities and is more eager to climb up with her own ability, rather than relying on nepotism. In contrast, Lu Xiaoli is more purely trading for the sake of obtaining resources, and Eric is just simply venting his desires in her. Both of them are pure. Of course, it is not excluded that Zhou Wenxiong is playing with the means of wanting to catch and indulge, and she deliberately behaves very freely. In fact, it is just to attract her own attention. But if you think about it carefully, shouldn't she, a 40-year-old, have this qualification? Is there a lack of women around Eric? And after a few hours of communication, Zhou Wenxiong did show a full understanding of the industry. Or, as Ms. Valentine said, give her a job as a manager and give her a small bet a year. Damn. Stinky bitches are so good, I'm really thinking about it. With an idea in his head, he picked up his phone and dialed it. Eric. Zhou Wenxiong was a little surprised and probably didn't expect to call just after leaving. Don't be surprised, I've considered your proposal. So fast, so the answer is no. The other man's tone was a little disappointed. Why? Because affirming a person must be well thought out, while denying a person often only takes 3 seconds to think. Interesting conclusion, but invalid in my case. You get the desired position, ma'am. He was stunned for a moment, and a few seconds later a chuckle rang on the phone. Did you laugh happily? Yes, good news always makes people laugh. But can I ask? Forget it, don't ask. You want to know if you got the position because you slept with me? Yes. You guess. Teased the other party, and Eric stopped joking. Joan, you have to give what you get, and I will give you a year to show what you are capable of. But you must complete a test first. I'm going to fire 70% of the original crew of the theater, and it's up to you to decide who leaves and who stays. But I don't want anyone to make trouble. Can you do it? No problem. Give me a week. I will let some corpse vegetarian people get out of the way immediately. Zhou Wenxiong immediately promised. You control the process yourself. I know that you have been suppressed, and it is inevitable that you will be resentful, but don't drive away capable people because of personal vendetta in the communique. The other party sneered. Eric, do you think I look like a child who does not distinguish between public and private? At least wait until the theater is on the right track, and then it is not too late to take revenge. It's good. Hate you but use you. That's what a good leader should have. In addition, I will connect with my secretary Carol. You can choose MGM's movies to adapt for the stage play. I just want to see the effect. Still have questions? Thanks, boss. Terminating an employee can always be a challenge, especially when you take over a new company that is about to go out of business. How to distinguish which employee is capable and which employee is a bastard has always been a technical problem. Instead of spending a lot of time doing this kind of thing, it is better to let Zhou Wenxiong be this villain. Outsiders can't understand the inside story better than their own people. Hanging up, Eric got dressed, wiped the lipstick marks off his neck and left. This week, The Hangover grossed $12.3 million, ranking number 5 on the weekly charts. The North American box office has reached $213 million, and overseas has also won many national weekly box office titles, with a box office of $133 million. With a global box office of $346 million, it topped the 2004 box office charts, of course, temporarily. After all, commercial blockbusters are generally placed in the summer and Christmas slots. Now, The Hangover continues to fight in movie theaters, and Box expects the global box office to reach $450 million, beyond the imagination of countless people. Paramount, Sony, Lionsgate, Fox and other major companies have been scouring the script library for this kind of pee and fart movies, picking and choosing the most sassy shots. Many Chinese people think that their country's bad movies are in charge, traffic is rampant, and garbage is everywhere, and they feel that Hollywood is a well-made blockbuster, and even commercial movies have special effects and big scenes to ensure quality. This idea cannot be said to be right, but it is also outrageously wrong. The reason for the illusion is only because of the environment, like an information cocoon, and Hollywood's bad movies are kept out of the country. Those who can come in are screened, otherwise how can you earn your box office? Fools will not be fooled continuously. Even in the DVD market and the pirated disc market, some famous movies will be chosen. Otherwise, the discs will have to lose money, and the probability of bad movies in famous movies will be much smaller. So this illusion is created. At number 14 on the list is Warner's The Police Couple, which has more than twice the investment of The Hangover, and invited Ben Stiller as the leading actor, and originally invited Todd Phillips to direct. However, he was rejected by Phillips, and he turned his head and chose The Hangover. Now that the two movies are released a week apart, The Hangover is undoubtedly a big hit, and The Police Heroes also got off to a good start, winning a weekly box office championship. However, the follow-up decline was larger, and the second week was suppressed by the third week of The Hangover. Both movies are comedies, Eat More for The Hangover and Eat Less for Police Heroes. So much so that analysts changed their forecasts, starting with $150 million in North America and $270 million globally, and now they are $100 million in North America and $200 million worldwide. It is still profitable, but compared to the investment of more than $80 million, Warner will definitely make less. In contrast, the outside world can't help but praise Todd Phillips's vision, and many invitations have come to the door. It was dark and a black Lincoln sedan was driving on its way to Los Angeles International Airport. Carol, it doesn't seem like you're feeling well. Are you not feeling well? No, it's just that I slept a little late, and I'll go back and rest later. It's good to go down. Eric nodded. Zhou Wenxiong will contact you in the next few days, and she will be in charge of the work of the Hezen Theater for the time being, and you will coordinate it in the center. Okay, boss. By the way, where did Judy Newhouse go? And it felt like I hadn't heard her in a while. Judy took a leave of absence a week ago, just staggered with the time you returned to China, and it will expire in 2 days. What's wrong with her? I don't know. I just know that it's a family matter, and she's going back to New York to deal with it. With a soft hum, Eric didn't ask any more questions. Last night, I fought with Godot for half a night, and I killed the other party weekly. At the cost of not recovering yet, I only slept for less than 3 hours, and I had to sleep well when I got on the plane. The car slowly stopped. Eric opened his eyes and got out of the car, and Carol followed behind with his things. Okay, Carol, you go back. Eric took the bag and prepared to board the plane, but he couldn't help but wonder when he saw that the other party looked like he wanted to say something. Is there anything else? Boss, although the premiere is gone, are you not even attending the premiere? Asked Carol. There's no need, although The Passion of the Christ is a good movie. It will definitely be scolded, and we will not be targeted. But Mel Gibson and they're all going to attend. Isn't it good that none of us attend? Eric thought for a moment. What you think about makes sense, so let's do it. The distribution company is AK Films. You can inform Warren to attend. Anyway, MGM is hiding behind the scenes in this movie and waiting to collect money. Go back and warn the company. No one should talk nonsense. I don't want to cause public opinion trouble. Understood. Looking at the white dots that gradually disappeared into the sky, Carol couldn't help but think. Eric Kaw left on time. Filming is one thing, and going out to hide is probably one thing. The journey was a bit long, and by the time the plane landed, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was not much time left for today's shoot when we arrived at the snow castle. On the set, looking at the orderly shooting, Eric couldn't help but nod his head secretly. This scene is the highlight moment of Eames, played by Tom Hardy. According to the set of fighting moves, he simply and neatly put down the enemies one by one, and the completion is quite beautiful.
Bang!
The prop gun rang out, the stuntman fell to the ground, and Neil shouted that the card was over. Good job. It seems that you have adapted well to your new position. Eric walked over and clapped his hands applaudedly. Neil Blomkamp laughed a few times. Director, if you see the situation of my first day of filming, you will definitely not applaud. It's everyone's cooperation that I'm getting acquainted with, but it's a lot slower than when you were there, and I'm only 2/3 of the way. I've achieved my goal, sorry. There is always a time when people get used to it for the first time, and they send me the footage you have taken in the past few days to my room at night. Knowing that Eric was going to check his work, he confidently said, I promise it's all shot according to your storyboard, and it's not bad at all. Eric, didn't you say you'd be there at 3 o'clock, and everyone still thinks you're out of school? Nico's tone was worried and complaining. That's right, this is chilly, and we're worried that you're going to pull off an Andean miracle. Theron and the others also came over to say hello. Eric was speechless. I just forgot to count the time to get to the snow castle after landing, but the plane did arrive on time at 3 o'clock. Also, the Andean miracle. There was really an accident. I was the first to eat you. The Andean miracle mentioned here is a real plane accident that happened in the 70s of the last century. The plane crashed as it flew over the Andes, killing 21 of the 45 passengers instantly, while 24 survived. Later, in the boundless snow-capped mountains, these 24 people faced severe cold, injuries, and hunger, and 16 people were stunned to get out of the snow alive, which is called the Andean miracle. But later in the investigation, the survivors also revealed the cruel reality that the reason why they survived was actually to feed on the flesh and blood of the victims. After the truth was exposed, public opinion began to waver, and critical voices followed. In the end, some of these 16 people couldn't bear to commit suicide, and some went incognito, and the so-called miracle was a cruel tragedy behind it. Okay, but I have too little meat and Theron should be more delicious. Nico chuckled. Is she saying I'm fat? Hearing this, Theron suddenly began to think, and immediately smiled and opened his mouth to prepare to fight back. Eric was keenly aware that something was wrong and opened his mouth to disrupt the topic. When it comes to the topic of cannibalism, I suddenly remembered a novel, The Fantasy Drifting of Young Pi. Have you read it? Belle's eyes lit up. I've read Jan Martel's work, a very wonderful novel. Yes, especially the analysis of human nature, which contains metaphors, struggles, sacrifices, transcendence, is intoxicating. Belle nodded. I think this is a book about how people and the world get along, and after reading it, I have a feeling that this journey is not to hide the bestiality of human beings, but to have more confidence in human nature. Look, this is an actor who loves to learn. What is the actor's final fight? It is cultural heritage, and reading is the best way to accumulate heritage. Seeing that the two were chatting about a book they hadn't heard of, the others couldn't interject and had to disperse. Eric, I think The Fantasy Drifting of Young Pi is very suitable for making a movie, and it is the kind of excellent film that you know at a glance that it will hit the Oscars. I agree with that. MGM will start this project. Huh. Hee, I have already gotten the copyright to the novel, but I need to find a suitable director to start it, and it must be a director who is extremely good at controlling emotions and hearts. Can you give me a cameo role? Belle asked excitedly. I know there's no main character in it that suits me, but as long as it makes a cameo, I really like the novel. No problem. Midnight. Los Angeles. Kodak Theater. Today is the day of the release of The Passion of the Christ, and in view of the particularity of the movie, even the ArcLight Theater that MGM has been using has been abandoned and the premiere is set here. It has been 2 years since the film was established and released today, and there have always been controversies. The main opposition was the Jews, because Jesus was betrayed by Judas, and Judas was a Jew, which is why it was difficult to find a distributor for the film. After all, the Jewish community in Hollywood still made up a considerable number. For example, Spielberg, Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman, Robert Downey Jr., Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, Ben Stiller, Adrian Brody, Orlando Bloom, Scarlett Johansson, etc., all of whom have Jewish ancestry. In addition to celebrities, Disney, Universal, and Warner all have a number of Jews at the top of the hierarchy, and although not to the extent of being controlled, they can also influence corporate decisions. Other large and medium-sized companies are more or less Jewish, and the only ones that are relatively clean are MGM and Fox so far. But when Mel Gibson found Fox, the other party was also very cautious and entangled. Only Eric approved, but he also threw the hot potato to AK Films, The White Glove. Although the movie is controversial, it also has benefits. That is, it saves publicity costs, you don't have to fight advertisements, and the people who scold you and boycott you will naturally help you. MGM also treats it very well, with 3,100 theaters open, and even many self-made movies can't get this data. The reason is not complicated. Eric also hates Jews who double standard and like to jump around. Add some blockage to them, why not? As for Godot, she agrees with everything she does. She has no experience in the military and is not religious. She only has a sense of belonging to her family. As for Jewish ancestry, I can't fight with you. Don't come to relatives. Religion, or faith, is called the strongest and most unbreakable thing in the world. It is an existence that is more deeply rooted in the human heart and deep into the soul than all emotions such as family, love, and friendship. Even after the most painful torture, devout believers still die without repentance, and there are countless such things in history. But at the same time, interfaith conflicts are often the most brutal, and many wars in history have been triggered by religious beliefs. Even in the new century, there are still a large number of theocratic countries in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is still using Sharia to regulate the law, and Sunnis and Shiites continue to clash with each other. More than a decade ago, Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ caused an uproar in countries that believed in Jesus. He portrayed Jesus as a somewhat fleshy man who went through many trials and finally attained epiphany and transcendence, in which Judas was reinterpreted as a tragic hero who endured humiliation. Martin Sr. may just want to make a film that wants to express his ideas, but the reinvention of religious history is not tolerated. So public opinion pushed him to the forefront, and all kinds of criticism and abuse overwhelmed Martin Scorsese, and he could only continue to apologize. The distributor, Universal Pictures, did not resist the pressure and did not dare to continue to expand after a small-scale screening. The box office of the movie only sold more than $8 million in the end, and even if it was put more than 10 years ago, the ending can only be described as a fiasco. For more than a decade, Hollywood has only played a sideline with religious movies and will not conduct in-depth discussions, but Mel Gibson has obviously gone too far this time. Some time ago, Eric felt very good after watching the finished film. This is very good. It is not religious. Purely from an artistic point of view, it makes people feel very touched after watching it. Although Eric claims to believe in Catholicism, it is all smoke bombs, using his mother as a cover and deceiving fools. In the United States, theists have far easier access to the market than atheists because religion and belief have been equated. If you don't believe in religion or God, you are considered by many people to have no faith, that is, a terrible person who does not seek progress and has no moral constraints. Although only 0.2% of prison inmates are atheists, having faith does not affect them from killing, raping, robbing, stealing, or abducting human beings. Although George W. Bush is also a Christian. He is not ambiguous at all when it is time to start a war, and people use religious beliefs as a card to pull votes. Although most celebrities say that they are believers, they will mess around when they should mess around, they will be powdered when they should be powdered, and they will not blink their eyes when they take drugs, which is the same in Hollywood and politics in this regard. It is the dirtiest circle in the world and the most believing circle in the gods. Now that the Passion of the Christ has been published, the circumstances are very different. The internet is more developed, and the speed of information dissemination is more convenient, which is also destined to become the most stirring religious film after The Last Temptation of Christ. Chile, on the set of Inception, everyone has arrived one after another to prepare for today's shooting. Neil handed a notebook to Eric and said worriedly, "Boss, the situation doesn't look very good. A lot of people are firing guns." It's only been a day, and the word of mouth has come out so quickly. It's very fast. It's as fast as it was premeditated. I think they must have held the manuscript in their hands for a long time, just waiting for the movie to be released and sent out immediately. That's right. No matter how good the movie is, it's useless, and in the eyes of many people, its appearance is the original sin. But it's not without good news. The box office has been released on the first day, and The Passion of the Christ has won $33 million, and people were stupid when I learned this data. Eric smiled. That's because there is a pre-sale ticket office. The movie gimmick is too big, and many people book tickets in advance. Boss, do you think there will be a cliff in the back? Not really. The decline is certain, but the decline should be very small, because this is indeed an excellent work, if not with tinted glasses. As they spoke, Nico and Theron walked over, and Eric saw them smiling. The two women are also quite strange. Sometimes they feel that they are competing, and sometimes they feel that they are talking and laughing like best friends, and they can't understand it. My great director, I bet you're reading the review of The Passion of the Christ. Yes, the domestic entertainment section has been taken over by this movie, and the Super Bowl is not being discussed. Neil obediently gave up the place and followed Eric for more than a year, and he was very discerning and understood that the two women and the boss must have a somewhat inexplicable relationship. The two of them sat around Eric, opened the website and read the comments from all sides, and overall it was mixed. Not as bad as Neil said. ABC TV interviewed Donahue, president of the Catholic League, and he bluntly said that it was very well made, and this is a good film that truly reflects the history of religion. The Passion of the Christ is the most sincere and moving film I've seen in years, and it follows the guidance of the New Testament to bring that history to life and let people know the greatness of Jesus. Mel Gibson was not only a good actor, but also a great director, and a lot of people cried in the cinema. Weep for the suffering of Jesus, for the mercy of Jesus to redeem all. It's a great movie, and I'm going to get the faithful to watch it together. At the same time, Carrie Simpson, a spokesman for the Protestant Union, was also interviewed, and he also praised the film. There was no doubt that The Passion of the Christ was a wonderful and sincere film, and we rented it out to watch it, and it proved to be worth it. The performances from the actors were fantastic, and James Caviezel played Jesus as very expressive, and it is said that he was struck twice by lightning during filming, but never came out unscathed. You know what? It must be the Lord who is blessing him, and Monica Bellucci's Maria is also great, and the movie deserves to be seen by more people. In addition, the Orthodox Church, which has a small number of believers in the United States, also praised it strongly, and many film critics also gave it praise. This is the pinnacle of director Mel Gibson. When everyone thought that Braveheart was difficult to surpass, he came up with The Passion of the Christ. Hollywood needs this kind of profound director, and the audience also needs profound good movies. An unbelievable film with Latin and Aramaic dialogue throughout, and few people know what the actors are talking about if it weren't for the English subtitles. You know, Americans don't read subtitles, but The Passion of the Christ allows everyone to be in peace staring at the big screen for 2 hours. It's a miracle. After The Beautiful Legend of Sicily, Monica Bellucci has finally contributed impressive acting again, and it seems that all she lacks is a good director and a good script. But there is praise and hatred, and a spokesman for the Jewish Association has strongly criticized the film as too cruel and deliberately distorting history. In particular, the film blames the Jewish church for the root cause of Jesus' death, which is even more strongly anti-Semitic, inciting social sentiment and calling on everyone not to go to the movies. Many critics have also criticized the film for promoting excessive violence and deliberately torturing Jesus on the big screen for an hour in order to attract attention. A few also demanded that Mel Gibson and the entire cast be banned and that they be kicked out of Hollywood forever. It doesn't look very bad, but there are quite a lot of people who support it. Not necessarily. After all, Hollywood is a gathering place for Jews, and Mel Gibson is furious this time. Catholicism, Protestantism, Orthodox Christianity, Judaism, it seems so complicated. Why are they hostile? Because of Judas? Theron asked curiously. Eric looked at Nico. That's for Nicole, as a Catholic. She should know it very well. Nicole waved her hand a little embarrassed. I'm lying, there are a few people in Hollywood who really believe in religion. Hee hee. Then let me give you a brief science popularization. Actually, although these four denominations are very separate from us, they are collectively called Christianity in countries with weak religious influence, and people don't care at all. The first of the four sects was Judaism, and the Jews in the Middle East began to pray to heaven because they were surrounded by powerful enemies. The Jews believed that there was a God in heaven and that God would send a savior down to save themselves, and the savior was called the Messiah, which was Christ. But no one knows when Christ will come, and the Jews can only wait. Then a man named Jesus began to claim to be Christ, the messenger of God, and to make everyone believe in themselves. So Judaism began to split, and those who did not believe in Jesus continued to wait for Christ to come and hold fast to Jewish teachings. Those who believed in Jesus founded Christianity, so Christianity was actually a branch of Judaism. The two Bibles also began to differ, with Judaism speaking of the various covenants that Jews had made with God, the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible. The Christian Bible has more stories about the Jews and Jesus, the New Testament. Since the Christian doctrine was to redeem all people, the number of believers grew rapidly, and then it was made the state religion by the Roman Empire. Later, the Roman Empire split into Western Rome and Eastern Rome, and Christianity split into two. Western Rome is Catholic, and Western Europeans mostly believe in this. Eastern Rome is Orthodox Christianity, and Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, Serbia, and other countries believe in this. After a few hundred years, Catholicism became increasingly corrupt, and Martin Luther split again from Catholicism and founded Protestantism. So each of the four denominations has its own contradictions, but Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, since they are all split from Christianity, can all three of them be united in the face of Judaism? Because Judaism had a doctrinal conflict, it united with the Roman Empire to execute Jesus, and this episode is clearly recorded in the New Testament. Mel Gibson brought this history to the big screen, which is the equivalent of roasting Jews who profess Judaism on a fire, and Judaism certainly hates him. Theron's eyes revealed adoration. Eric, you know so much knowledge. It seems that nothing can be difficult for you. Eric smiled and gladly accepted the adoration, never mentioning what he had consulted out of curiosity after the internal test screening. Allowing your significant other to adore you is actually very helpful in strengthening your relationship. Director, I still don't understand it. Even if Mel Gibson doesn't make movies, this thing still exists. It's been thousands of years, and there's nothing to hate. Neil frowned. Eric shook his finger. No, these are two different things. In the eyes of Christians, Judaism is the sinner who killed the Savior Jesus. But in the eyes of Judaism, he did the right thing. Jesus was a criminal who deceived the people. He should have been killed, and he did nothing wrong. And the movie-watching frenzy triggered by the Passion of the Christ, in the eyes of Judaism, is equivalent to pouring dirty water on oneself, which is slander. You are right, and I am right. Religion is subjective, and there is no evidence. So you can only say that whoever has the loudest voice will listen to whomever it is. Nicole smiled. Neil, did you steal my money yesterday? Neil Blomkamp's face changed, and he hurriedly shook his head. What? What are you talking about? How could I steal the money? You stole it. I do, I understand. Hee, although I don't have any proof that you stole it. As long as I say it out loud, guess what the crew will think of you? Neil sighed. I became a Jew. For 5 consecutive days, the box office of The Passion of the Christ continued to rise. It grossed $83.8 million in 3 days in the first weekend, ranking 7th in film history, and the first was the first week of Transformers. The box office reached an astonishing $145 million in the first 5 days, directly rushing to the 3rd place in film history, second only to Transformers and The Lord of the Rings 3. The amazing explosiveness made everyone dumbfounded, including producer Mel Gibson's company, and Box has continuously adjusted its box office expectations from $95 million in North America at the beginning to $330 million in North America now. Love in Havana, Death Club, 50 First Loves, etc. are not enough, and The Passion of the Christ is booked as a box office champion for the next few weeks. Fortunately, A Quiet Place was released a week earlier, otherwise it would not have won a single weekly box office title, and now the 2 films occupy the 1st and 2nd places. But in opposition to the box office boom is an intensifying criticism, not only Judaism and some media outlets, but also social organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League and the Anti-Discrimination Association. There are already signs of marches and rallies in New York, Seattle, New Orleans, and other places, and the impact of the event has surpassed that of the recent Super Bowl. Some conservative MPs have once again voiced their opinions, calling for restrictions on film and television creation and increased censorship. Even MGM, who has been silent, was also involved. As long as it is carefully investigated, everyone knows that AK Film and Television is MGM's white glove, and this time it was also poked out, and the stock price that had been rising suddenly stagnated and even began to fall. However, Eric is not worried about this. After all, the money is actually in his pocket, and when the public opinion turmoil passes, the stock price will naturally rise back. Taking advantage of the fact that someone was selling, he also instructed Maiku and a few women to eat as much as they wanted and wait for the appreciation to make a steady profit. Early in the morning, Eric yawned, and Theron, who had dealt with her first last night, went on a date with Nico again, and he didn't have enough sleep time again. However, the Chilean scene is also coming to an end, and I will return to the United States after filming in the next few days. Picking up the phone and taking a look, there was a text message from Carol, and Eric called back. What's wrong, Carol? Bosses, Disney, Universal, Sony, Paramount, Fox, and Warner have joined us in sending a request to block Mel Gibson. After Carol finished speaking, Eric's face sank instantly, fucking these deflated calves. When? Last night, it was said that the people of the 6 companies had a meeting and negotiated for a long time, and they were all off work, and then the official letter was delivered to us at 11 o'clock in the evening. Considering you may have taken a break, I didn't call, just sent a text message. Okay, I see, hard work. Boss, what are we going to do? They pressed very hard this time, and the 6 major companies joined forces to ban one person, which is rarely happening in Hollywood history. After thinking for a moment, Eric said directly, "It's okay. Don't bother with them. Just drag it out and don't reply. Just say that I'm filming abroad. This is not a trivial matter after all. Mel Gibson is not just Mel Gibson. He also owns a company. Anyway, everything will wait for me to return to China." Knowing that Eric was looking for a reason to use procrastination, Carol was even more sure that his trip abroad on the day of the film's release must have been expected. Since the boss is not in a hurry, there is no need to be in a hurry to be a secretary by himself. Just listen to the arrangement. Hanging up the phone, Eric shook his head to sober himself up. He didn't pay attention to the text messages after fighting continuously last night. I washed my face, walked to the window, and looked into the distance. It seemed that this time the visitor was not good. But Jews make up a large portion of Disney, Universal, and Warner's top executives, and it's understandable that they want to ban Mel Gibson. Fox also has a reason, after all. American Idol is about to fight The Voice, and people want MGM to be in trouble. What's more, the competition between Facebook and MySpace has reached a white-hot stage, and Murdoch will definitely support his son, and hitting MGM is equivalent to hitting Facebook. Not to mention Sony, because of the Miku case. MGM has long formed a mortal enmity with the other party, and Little Japan has been looking for an opportunity to take revenge. The only reason for no reason is Paramount. MGM and the other party have no conflict. It is probably coerced. Walking out of the room to the dining room, Eric considered a countermeasure as he walked. As a result, if you think about it carefully, you and Paramount have indeed had friction. At the beginning, people also took a fancy to Transformers, but they were robbed of the copyright by themselves. If the movie fails, Paramount will only laugh, glad that MGM helped him wade through a thunderstorm and test the market reaction. But the movie is a big hit at the box office, so the other party will definitely have grievances and ideas. "Honey, what's wrong with you?" In the corridor, Theron's voice suddenly sounded behind her, moisturizing every day. Her complexion was getting better and better, and her face was ruddy. "What are you thinking?" asked Theron, curiously. "Didn't hide it from her." Eric told the story and the plate. Theron sneered after hearing this. "I think these guys are jealous. They are jealous that MGM is getting better and better, and they are worried that one day MGM will regain its position as the hegemon of Hollywood like it did in the last century." "My dear, think about it. Since you started at the helm, MGM's movies haven't lost money. Movies are a high-risk and high-investment industry, and MGM's performance is really scary." "Well, there are people who lose money." "What?" "The devil hasn't returned to its original yet." "Nasty." Theron punched Eric in the chest. In less than 2 years, it has paid off more than $2 billion in debt and led MGM to relist, and its market value has rushed to the 3rd place among the 7 major companies, and if it weren't for the stock price decline in the past few days, it would have surpassed Warner to rush to the 2nd place. It has a lot of popular IP cash cows, and it also holds a large amount of equity in Double Star Entertainment and Marvel, and has created 2 very promising emerging websites, Facebook and YouTube. "My boss, they're scared. Anyone else is scared. Especially Disney. It's definitely the most scared. Maybe it's Mickey Mouse's lead." Eric nodded. Theron had a certain point. You must know that in the early part of the last century, there was no such thing as the Big Seven in Hollywood. At that time, there were only 5 strong studios: Paramount, Warner, MGM, Fox, and Raidenhua. The 5 companies have a fully vertically integrated structure, with studios, theater chains, and an international distribution network. Even the theater chain is in the hands of the film company. Just think about how terrifying it is. At that time, film and television companies were the absolute hegemon, and neither the stars nor the audience had a choice. You have to shoot whatever I ask you to shoot, and the audience must watch what I want the audience to watch, and the overlord clause is not negotiable. In addition to the Big 5, there are also Universal, Columbia, and United States, but these 3 are very small, at most equivalent to the current Imperial Gate. Among the 5 major companies, the earliest was Paramount. MGM was founded in 1924, 12 years later than Paramount, but it quickly overtook the latecomers. How strong was MGM at that time? It has been hailed as the greatest wonder in the history of world cinema and claims to have more stars than the stars in the sky. The average budget for each film is $500,000, which was $500,000 in the 30s and 40s of the last century, and the cost is much higher than that of other companies. Has created countless classic screen images, and even the initiator of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is MGM. That's right, the Oscars were the first to be initiated by MGM. Due to the huge influence of the movie, MGM's heroic logo became a symbol of the United States for a time. This Lion King is the largest, most influential, and most profitable super movie giant of that era, which integrates production, distribution, and screening. By analogy, it is equivalent to the current United States, which belongs to the only super company, and the Hollywood pattern at that time was one superpower and many powers. Does Eric want MGM to regain its former glory? Of course, he dreamed of it, and he's doing it. When I get bigger, the first target is Warner, who made you kid hide my ancestral property in his hands, and he also holds DC Comics. You already have a way to die. Eric is still non-Jewish, and the release of The Passion of the Christ may still have anti-Semitic tendencies in his heart. I am afraid that the other party is really afraid of himself, and it is not surprising that he will be targeted. Theron, do you have any good advice for the current situation? Theron frowned. Honey, I don't know your whole cards, but if it's me, in the face of the pressure from the 6 major alliances, I might give in. Are you sure that the other side won't get an inch after the concession? Now it's up to them to see their true intentions. You must have made a decision in mind, haven't you? Eric snorted. He definitely couldn't retreat. First of all, it will affect its own prestige. It will also affect MGM's integrity. Sell your teammates when you are under pressure, and people will definitely have scruples about doing business with you in the future. In addition, small second- and third-tier companies such as DreamWorks, Lionsgate, and New Line are all staring at it, and they all want to see if MGM has the ability to withstand it. If you can't stand it, these guys can be potential allies today, and tomorrow they will become potential enemies. The most important thing is that the Lionheart Online is about to go online anyway. This is your life and death struggle. Only one side will fall down and admit it, and if you retreat, it's over. Having made up his mind, Eric took out his phone and called Robert Mirren. Robert, how's the preparation going? Receiving the call, Robert Mirren was visibly excited. Boss, it's already done, just waiting for your order. Seeing that Facebook and YouTube are developing so well, everyone can't wait for a long time. Very good. The time is set for next Saturday. I will give you a few days to prepare, and then it will be online at 9 o'clock in the morning. In the past few days, you have to contact all major websites immediately, as well as shopping malls, big screens, subways, public toilets, in short, except for TV stations, and smash advertisements to my death. It's going to be smashed all over the world, to the point that no one in the whole of America knows about it. No one knows about it. In addition, do a good job of docking with Facebook and YouTube. They will help to promote. I want to let online and offline information bombardment at the same time, as long as you are a person who is in contact with society, whether active or passive. You must know the name of Lionheart.com. Don't worry, boss. Promise to complete the task. May I ask what works we will launch in the first wave? House of Cards, Evil Force, The Voice of America, and then there's Peppa Pig. In the next few days, the controversy caused by The Passion of the Christ continued to ferment, and there was also a death incident, which pushed the film to the forefront. When a Kansas radio station hosted a free movie for its employees, Ms. Scout, a 56-year-old radio marketing manager, suffered a heart attack when the movie was shown in a brutal scene of Jesus' crucifixion. The news attributed Ms. Scout's death to the head of the movie, believing that the picture was too cruel and caused a lot of discomfort to everyone. Judaism and some social organizations have clamored even more fiercely, demanding that Mel Gibson be held accountable. Under the huge pressure of public opinion, This veteran in the entertainment industry finally couldn't stand it anymore and chose to accept an interview with NBC. He has repeatedly stressed that he does not have any anti-Semitic tendencies, but just wants to make a film. "I didn't expect things to get to this point. It wasn't my intention. I'm not against Jews, Judaism. In fact, I have a lot of Jewish friends. Really, I just want to make a profound film. That's what every director is looking for. I'm willing to apologize to you if the plot of the movie hurts anyone. I hope everyone looks at the Passion of the Christ with a normal heart, and neither I nor the film have any ironic positions, and once again apologize to those who were hurt." Mel Gibson's public apology finally reassured some people, and the opposition weakened somewhat. But the Jews are very strong, and the influence of Catholicism, Protestantism, and other sects is not weak, and they openly support the movie, and the two sides have a war of words. Finally, the topic was led to the ultimate question, which was who was responsible for Jesus' death. Everyone understands that this is not at all useful with an apology from Mel Gibson, but a contest between the two camps. And during these days, Eric would receive calls from Carol every day. The 6 major companies knew that he was playing procrastination tricks and wanted to drag it out until the end of the competition between the two camps, so they urged him more urgently. On the first day, I hoped that he would return to China as soon as possible to discuss the blocking, and Eric replied that he couldn't leave the filming until the key part was over. The next day, the 6th party wanted him to return to China immediately, and the matter must be quickly brought out to make the people angry, and Eric's answer was that I was thinking about it, and I would give an answer immediately. On the 3rd day, the 6th National Congress demanded that he must ban Mel Gibson and at the same time draw The Passion of the Christ in advance, and he could not pretend to be anything. In this regard, Eric's reply is that you don't pretend, and that brother doesn't pretend either, and your request is just 2 words. No way. On the 4th day, the 6th party wanted him to think it through again, and it seemed to have softened. Eric thought that the other party was a paper tiger, and it was just a bluff. Unexpectedly, on the 5th day, the 6 major congresses suddenly issued a joint statement. In view of the huge controversy caused by The Passion of the Christ and the very bad social impact, Mel Gibson himself has a strong racist and anti-Semitic tendency. Therefore, after our discussions, we have decided not to establish and continue any work with Mel Gibson in the future, and hereby declare. The 6 presidents of Disney, Warner, Fox, Paramount, Sony, and Universal are inscribed. The announcement of this statement immediately sparked a shock in the industry and widespread discussion. The so-called blockade can be achieved in Huaxia, a country with an optoelectronic bureau and administrative management. But there is no real ban in the United States, and the reason why many stars suddenly disappeared from the big screen is that some of them did it themselves. For example, Ingrid Bergman in the last century, Hollywood was very conservative at that time, and her derailment was boycotted by the whole people, which was banned by the audience. But after a few years, the limelight passed and she still acted. And Megan Fox, who everyone is very familiar with, annoyed exploding Bay and Spielberg, but there are just no big productions, and small investment movies are still received. In Hollywood, a society where money is paramount, as long as a star is valuable and can be poached, it doesn't matter if it annoys a few bigwigs, it won't really make you lose your job. But this time it is obviously different. The 6 major companies have joined forces to block one person. This kind of battle is unheard of and unseen. In the face of such exaggerated strength, Mel Gibson's company would definitely be doomed, and other small independent companies would not dare to cooperate with him again. Because these small companies have a fatal shortcoming, that is, the ability to distribute, and this can only be relied on by large companies. But at the same time, many people have noticed, no, there is one less big Hollywood company. What about MGM? Just when everyone wondered what was going on, MGM also threw out a statement. Mel Gibson is a good director, and The Passion of the Christ is an excellent film, and we are very sure that he is a man of integrity and that the film does not have any personal inclinations. MGM is willing to continue and work with director Gibson for a long time to bring more excellent works to everyone. Signed, Eric Cooper. More than 10 years later, when the internet became more and more developed, the door to information blockage was opened. So there is a joke that spreads that Israel is the father of the United States, and the Jews control the United States. There is a certain amount of truth, but it is not so absolute, and it is still mainly ridiculed. For just as there are two parties in the United States, there are two main factions in the Jews, Zionism and diasporism. Most of the Jews living in Israel are Zionists, and many ordinary Jews live according to Jewish teachings. On the American side, it's Jewish diaspora, and it's not interested in such a thing, and the only connection between the two sides is that everyone is Jewish. Diasporism likes to play with finance, public opinion, and internet high technology, and is very resistant to half-brother Zionism who likes to engage in war with his own half-father and mother. After all, this is an era of global peace. War is spurned, and when the time comes, you will be scolded for Zionism, and I will not be spared. But the funny and paradoxical thing is that the salaries of the Angsa army in the United States are very much in favor of Israel, counting on the little dad to make war money. Ansar Capital also supported the Republican Party, which is the conservative party, so the diaspora Jews supported the Democratic Party, which is the liberal party. As far as the United States is concerned, the diaspora is mainly concentrated in two major areas: finance and public opinion media. Needless to say, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, Goldman Sachs, Lehman, and other banking and financial groups have their big hands. In terms of media, there are established newspapers such as the New York Times and Newsweek, as well as some TV stations and entertainment news industries. Overall, Jews are far more powerful in the financial sphere than in the media sphere. Because of the development and change of the times, the newspaper industry is in rapid decline, and it will soon be retired from the stage of history in 3 or 5 years. Online media belongs to the emerging rising forces, and the Jews can't control it. Google, Yahoo, etc. are mothers if they have milk, and they will help whoever gives money and has traffic, referred to as mercenaries. Compared with more than 10 years later, the current Jewish capital's control over public opinion is much weaker, and it is far from the extent that future generations can block whoever they want. And Eric's opponent is a handful of people in this gang. They are very strong together, but they are still far from invincible. As long as they are subdued this time or fight to defeat both, in Hollywood in the future, these people will have to bow their heads and take a detour when they see themselves. The plane landed at Los Angeles International Airport, and Eric left through a private passage without going with everyone. This reduced a lot of trouble, and many reporters squatted for a long time and finally pounced. Belle, Theron, Nico, Ken Watanabe. Now any Oscar-winning actor is not good, and he didn't find the target, and these paparazzi scattered in a hurry. Nico smiled helplessly. If it was before, we would have been asked questions for at least half an hour, and maybe it would have caused a traffic jam. Theron shook his head, but now it's out of people's eyes. Everyone's attention is on Eric. I don't know if he's gone. Everyone was silent, and since the release of the two statements yesterday, public opinion has exploded. Especially in the Hollywood circle, big and small stars are curious, waiting, eating melons, hesitating, and worried. Several of them received a call from a friend asking for inside information. And they all kept silent. Nico and Theron were pretending to be confused, and although the others were filming with Eric, this kind of thing was clearly beyond their ability. The online discussion is just as intense. Can anyone tell me what's going on? What's going on between the Big Six and MGM? It looks like we're going to fight. It's not that it's going to fight, it's already fighting, and if the statement can be issued, It proves that they have discussed it many times in private, but the result is definitely not satisfactory to both sides. I don't understand. What the hell is going on? Because of Mel Gibson? I admit he's really talented, and I love Braveheart. But he's just a middle-aged rough man. Why did he become Helen? The Big Six and MGM are going to start the Trojan War for him. Ha 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 ha. This metaphor is really vivid and vivid. Mel Gibson is Helen. The Big Six companies are like the Greek coalition led by Agamemnon and Menelaus, and MGM is like Troy, who has been besieged for 10 years. 10 years? Don't be kidding. Troy can hold out for 10 years without being breached, because that's a myth, and if there is a war with the Big Six, it's a question of whether MGM can survive a year, because we're in the real world. I bet MGM will retract the statement in less than 3 days. Eric Cooper is too young. He thinks of himself too tall. This statement is like a crime of passion. He will regret it immediately when he is sober, and then retract the apology. Eric Cooper is insane enough to shelter Mel Gibson, a racist, who must also be an anti-Semite. Don't you feel cold when you identify the radical Jews upstairs? You always like to beat people with a moral stick, but you never reflect on your own atrocities in the Middle East, and you stand on the mountain of morality all day long? The Jews used World War II as an excuse to disguise themselves as victims, as if the whole world owes you. But only the mustache and the Germans owe you, and other nations and nations do not owe you. The person who hates double standards the most, disgusting. I feel that everyone is getting one thing wrong. MGM's development is very good. Why do you think that once the war starts, it will be the Big Six that will crush MGM? Can't MGM stand out and dominate Hollywood? Haha, the internet is definitely a gathering place for fools. Look at MGM's stock price. Its stock price has been falling since Eric Cooper's megalomaniac made a statement, and now it has fallen by almost 5%. This is a lesson for this self-righteous young man. Maybe it's not a big hope, but don't forget that this is Hollywood, a place where movie dreams are abundant, and the weak protagonists in movies always defeat powerful enemies, and the audience loves this kind of bridge. Anyway, I really want to see MGM climb them. Yes, I want to. Me too. It's done. Just when everyone was waiting to eat melons, the heads of the Big Six also gathered in the mansion of Disney CEO Michael Eisner. I'm a little confused. Is the world changing too fast, or is the child too confident in himself? Said Warner CEO Barry Meyer with a funny face. Sony CEO Howard Stringer sneered. He really didn't expect that the opportunity for revenge would be ushered in so soon. I was blamed and made a fool of myself because of Michael Jackson, and this time I must let the other party taste this feeling. Gentlemen, tell me what you think. A lot of people are staring. What should we do? Eric Cooper is clearly against us. A few old bite on. You look at me, I look at you. Paramount CEO Brad Grey hesitated. He is the youngest of the six, only 46 years old this year. Paramount and MGM have no grudges, and the Transformers copyright dispute is just a normal business practice in his opinion, so he is not very willing to get involved in this fight. And Paramount has had a bad time in recent years, leaving only Mission Impossible as a big IP to support the field, which is at the bottom of the 7 major companies. So Brad Grey didn't want to do these things and didn't have the energy to do them, and the most important thing he needed to do now was to revitalize the company. I think we should contact Charlie Cooper. The kid is not sensible. He is an experienced old helmsman. Just let him take care of his son. Hearing this, Howard Stringer smiled. Brad, when did you become an indecisive person? This is not like you, I know. You can fire hundreds of employees at a time, and they have children, and you don't give them a chance. And Charlie Cooper has officially announced his retirement, and he can't control Eric Cooper's kid, which anyone can see. After being stunned for a moment, Brad Grey also said in a weird manner, "That's right. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let Eric Cooper come and make Sony's stock price plummet by $8 billion, which made many people disgraced." Tut-tut. MGM's stock price is only down 5% now. How can it compare with Sony? The scar was torn open, and Howard Stringer glared at each other, while the other three sat and watched the excitement. Seeing this, Michael Enos hurriedly stood up to stop it. We are here to deal with others, not to engage in infighting, although the six of them also have their own contradictions. Brad, Howard, we're here to discuss how to deal with MGM, not to fight. I hope that everyone can come together and bring MGM down, for the benefit of all of us. At least there will be one less competitor in the market, and you have seen how strong this lion has been for more than a year. Brad, I know you're having a hard time right now, and as long as you work well together, Disney will lend you a sum of money. When? Right now. Okay, then I'm okay with that. Given the promise of practicality, Brad Gray spread his hands. Michael Enos nodded. Okay, then let's all have their opinions. Since Eric Cooper is going to fight us in the ring, as an elder, it's time to teach him a lesson. Michael, lessons can be given, but hopefully not to use force. I know you have a lot to do with it. Of course, it's civilized now, and barbarism doesn't fit our identity anymore, does it? It's better to do this. Just hit the Cooper kid commercially. Don't forget that Charlie Cooper can also call people from the casino, and reciprocal harm is not advisable. Well, that's what I thought. So let's just suggest that since the best way to deal with Eric Cooper is to crush his company. My idea is very simple, which is to gather everyone's strength to launch a joint sniper against MGM, sniping at every MGM movie, every TV series. Everyone has their trump cards. We need to reset the file. We will definitely suffer some losses in the process, but it will be worth it. This battle is related to the honor and majesty of our 6 major companies, and I hope everyone can seriously cooperate. Hearing that the means of joint sniping were to be used, the other 5 nodded, secretly in anticipation. Generally speaking, the competition between film companies is to snipe each other's works, especially the A-grade productions that are carefully prepared by the other party and cost a lot of money. The specific operation is to put the ace IP in his hand in the same schedule as the other party and defeat the other party at the box office. When 2 movies are in the same schedule, the audience will naturally face a choice, and many people will not watch 2 movies at the same time, but choose one or the other. Then the audience will consider the subject matter, special effects, word of mouth, and other aspects of the movie, which includes a lot of manipulation, such as bribing film critics and the media to slander opponents. But this approach will also face problems. That is, the box office potential of the schedule is very large, and the 2 big productions cannot reach the upper limit. This is related to the overall economic strength of the country, especially the United States, which is still the largest in the world. For example, the box office cap in July is $3 billion. MGM has a big production. Disney has also launched a big production, and both movies are expected to have a box office of $500 million. As a result, even with other small company films competing, the huge potential is still enough to feed both MGM and Disney. In this case, even if the purpose of sniping can be achieved, the effect is limited. And what if you want to achieve the sniping effect? Naturally, you can pull a few more allies to snipe together. 2 are not enough. 7 major companies are on the same page, and at the same time, 7 blockbusters are squeezed into a schedule to fight. What will be the result? There is a high probability that everyone will not make money or lose money, so that the purpose of sniping will be achieved, which is referred to as injuring the enemy by 1,000 and losing 800. However, MGM has only one company, while the big 6 are teamed up. The former must fight nonstop all the time, while the latter belongs to will warfare, and it is clear who has the advantage. The happiest part of the process is the audience, who will enjoy a gluttonous feast. Barry, what do you think? Said Michael Enos looked at Barry Meyer. Barry Meyer nodded slightly. I have no opinion. Howard. No comment. Brad. I don't have an opinion either. Rueline. That's what I think too. Oliver. Listen to you this time. Michael Enos smiled. Okay, Then it's decided. I'll name this plan Operation Leo. Bell. As soon as his words fell, his mobile phone began to call, and he picked it up and looked at it. Was his secretary. The phone call lasted for a long time, and Michaelanas looked puzzled at first, and then his face suddenly changed after a while. Michael, what's going on? The old man frowned. MGM has news again. It turns out that this is the reason why Eric Cooper wants to go to war with us. What? What are you talking about? Michaelanas turned on the TV and casually jumped to an outdoor program. New York, Times Square, on a huge screen, Lionheart.com advertising is playing. I saw a male lion running through the jungle, over the river, across the canyon, and finally to the highest mountain, roaring at the vast sky. Roar for your dreams. When they wake up, many people find that the environment around them has changed, and countless messages are attacking and surrounding them, and these messages are the advertisements of Lionheart.com. After a few days of preparation, the roar of a lion can be heard in the whole of the United States, as long as it is a larger city. On the billboards of bus stations and subway stations, the window booths of major supermarkets, and the walls of every public toilet, workers are busy putting up posters. Empire State Building, Times Square, NASDAQ screen, Golden Gate Bridge lights. With the exception of the Statue of Liberty and Capitol Hill, which do not sell advertising space to the public, the roar of the Golden Lion echoes in major landmarks across the country. As the world's strongest web search engine and portal, Google and Yahoo are not immune. MGM directly threw $30 million at the former and $15 million at the latter, asking them to give Lionheart the best advertising treatment within half a month. As soon as netizens log into these two websites, they are immediately bombarded with advertisements in the interface and engine. Religious disputes, which had been dominant, were put on hold for the time being. As long as you forward the Lionheart advertisement and reach a certain number of likes, you can receive members of Lionheart at different stages for free for a month. Moreover, registered users of Facebook and YouTube also have preferential policies. As long as they log in to the two websites for 7 consecutive days and be online for half an hour a day, they can buy Lionheart members at half price. The main linkage promotes each other and no one loses. Unlike Facebook and YouTube, which burn money purely in the early stage, Lionheart Online is charged for its online launch, and Eric has set several levels for members. He referred to the charging standards of major cable TV stations and also set a continuous ladder charging standard for Lionheart. First of all, it is the lowest grade membership, which only charges $6.99 per month, which is $2 less than the lowest cost basic cable station AMC on the market, which is definitely a super conscience price. Of course, there is a price to pay for spending less money, and the price is that you can only watch it at most under 1 IP at the same time, and the highest picture quality can only be selected 720p, and you must watch ads. This advertisement is similar to that of Huaxia. There are boot ads, there are interface ads in the interface, there are preview ads, Big Data Screening also has screening ads. In short, except for the process of watching the film, you have to watch it at all times. But it is not as frustrating as Huaxia, an advertisement for 2 minutes. It is simply funny, and the advertisements of Lionheart are generally no more than 15 seconds. Another thing that is stronger than Huaxia is that its own 720p picture quality is really 720p, unlike the castrated version on the other side of the ocean. Youku, everyone knows how disgusting video sites like Ichi are. It's 720p. It's actually just 480p. It's 1080p. It's actually not as good as 720p. The lowest grade is for those who are poor students, people who want to try something new but have enough time, and then there is the standard membership. It costs $9.99, a $3 increase, which is $1 more than AMC, but I dare to outdo you, and I have a point. One is because I am confident that the quality of film and television dramas is better than yours, and the other is that standard members have begun to be free of ads, without the slightest advertisement, while basic cable stations, such as AMC, have advertisements. Standard members can choose up to 1080p resolution and can watch on up to 2 IPs at the same time. Couples only need to open one, and they can also share it with friends and family, which is very cost-effective. Then there's the top-of-the-line membership package, which is benchmarked against premium cable stations like HBO and costs $12.99 per month, which is on par with HBO. Eric was thinking about whether $11.99 would be more attractive, but when talking to his dad, he suggested that he shouldn't. Because those who are willing to buy a premium membership package will not care about the $1 price difference. What they really care about is the service level and the quality of film and television dramas, and the price war is almost ineffective for this group of users. And what if you set the price too low now? What will you do when you want to increase the price in 2 years? It's not okay to rise too much at a time, and the default unspoken rule of the industry is that the price increase does not exceed $2 at a time, which is the user psychology that has been explored for many years. So Eric decided to put a price of $12.99 and go head-to-head with HBO, a former partner. Premium members are still free of ads. The highest image quality has been increased from 1080p to Blu-ray, and it supports up to 4IP viewing at the same time, which is enough for a family. Blu-ray technology was only fully rolled out to the market last year, and it is an emerging technology, and many people still don't know it. In the current market environment, this is already the top image quality that ordinary people can access, and it is also a point that attracts users. In addition, the premium membership also provides a feature that seems very amazing now. That is, it supports downloading. As long as it is a work that is available on the Lionheart website, you can download it casually, and there is no limit. This feature will have a huge impact on DVD sales, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, DVDs have already started to decline, and there are no more years left to jump. Some misers can open a 1-month premium membership, then download all the movies and TV dramas they want to watch, and cancel the payment next month. When there is a new drama that you are interested in, you can open it for another month to download, as long as it is not too troublesome. Finally, it is also the biggest subversive innovation of Lionheart.com, that is, to abandon the weekly broadcast format, but to release the whole episode at once. For the American drama circle, this reform is no different from a major earthquake or a super earthquake of magnitude 12. As we all know, American dramas have always been broadcast weekly, and they have been so for decades. Weekly broadcasts naturally have the benefits of weekly broadcasting, but this benefit is relative to TV stations and producers. Generally, 3 or 4 episodes are made on stage first, and then the audience's satisfaction and recognition of the plot and characters are investigated. The crew will change the plot according to the results of the investigation, and whichever character is popular will add drama. Otherwise, let him receive a box lunch. If the overall response of the show is not as expected, it is very likely that the first season will directly shoot the finale. In this form, the employer is the most comfortable, can save a lot of costs, and at the same time, the long-term advertising revenue is also the bulk of the TV station's revenue. The actor is a little uncomfortable because he is facing the prospect of losing his job at any time. Of course, popular actors are comfortable because they can stay hot for a long time, but they also face the disadvantage of not being able to juggle other jobs. The most disgusting thing is, of course, the audience, especially American dramas, which are mainly fast-paced, often leaving suspense for the next episode. Lao Tzu is looking at it, his pants are all off, and you tell me that the bottom is gone, and it will take a week to grow. A week is enough to make the audience's enthusiasm for watching the movie fade, but they are reluctant to lose it, so they can only be excited, disgusting, the cycle of fading, anticipation, excitement, disgusting, fading, and anticipation goes on and on, like the infernal hell that Buddhism says. What's more, TV stations broadcast at a fixed time, and if you miss it, You have to wait for a rebroadcast, and if you miss a rebroadcast, it will be troublesome. Everyone is so busy at work, and they are not in front of the TV anytime and anywhere. Release the whole episode at once. Watch whichever episode you want. Watch it whenever you want. Rewatch it whenever you want. Relive it whenever you want, and you don't have to buy DVDs or make videotapes. Why has Netflix risen so quickly? This is an important reason. Of course, not all programs adopt a one-time release mode, such as The Voice, a competitive variety show in the form of a one-time half-season plus weekly broadcast to maintain the suspense of the champion to the end. At the same time as advertising on the website, MGM's self-made dramas and imported dramas were also edited into films and spent on major websites and YouTube to push them wildly. For the current Lionheart, the scale of self-made dramas has not yet risen, and only after becoming famous can it attract a large number of creators to take refuge. Relying only on a few films led by Eric is obviously not enough for the audience to watch, and the frequency of updating 1 or 2 films in a week or half a month is not enough. So during this time, in addition to lobbying small companies such as New Line and DreamWorks, he was engaged in introduction. Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Japan, South Korea, China, and other influential dramas, MGM is sending people to contact. The focus is naturally on British dramas and Japanese anime. Needless to say, the influence of British dramas on American dramas is needless to say, and many Hollywood practitioners are influenced by British dramas. Under the guidance of Michael Daubers, MGM has introduced a large number of high-quality British dramas, such as Detective Poirot, Battlefield Detective, Sherlock Holmes, Mr. Bean, and French Restaurant. Although the influence of Japanese dramas is average, the influence of anime is too great, even in the United States. From the early 80s of the last century, Riemann began to flourish in the United States. Many universities began to appear Riemann fan associations. There are also fan associations in society. This period is a bit similar to the early Huaxia, and many domestic manufacturers don't broadcast it, so they do their own translations, referred to as subtitle groups. Later, a phenomenal Japanese comic triggered a ratings frenzy in the United States. It was Akira, and since then, the development of Japanese comics in the United States has entered a golden age. Pokémon, Ghost in the Shell, Sailor Moon, Doraemon, and other works have gained a large number of fans, not to mention the strong foundation laid by the super popular work, Dragon Ball. If it weren't for the support of high popularity, Spirited Away would not have won last year's Oscar so easily. One statistic can reflect the situation. Last year's comic sales in Japan accounted for 42% of the total sales of comics in the United States. According to this growth trend, it is predicted that it will reach 50% in 2007, which has greatly seized the market of local manufacturers such as Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse. But what can be done? The audience, especially young people, like to watch it, and capital is the most profit-seeking. The last time Eric went to Japan to promote Transformers, he met with several major manufacturers. After nearly half a year of negotiations, a cooperation was finally reached, and the 5-year exclusive broadcast rights of these popular masterpieces were obtained, including some emerging potential masterpieces, such as Bleach Reaper, Naruto, One Piece, etc. However, to Eric's regret, MGM only got the film and television adaptation rights and the right to broadcast exclusively on the internet, and the authorization of comic sales and peripheral production still needs to be negotiated. At the same time, under the leadership of Shueisha, MGM acquired the live-action film production rights of Dragon Ball from the legendary manga artist Akira Toriyama. As the first canon of the live-action manga movie, both sides have high hopes, and the plot of the movie will be the world's first martial arts club to defeat Vic. Eric gave the screenwriter a death order: be sure to be faithful to the original work. Don't play for Lao Tzu. Finish writing the script for me to review, and change it indiscriminately without your good fruit to eat. Some screenwriters think very highly of themselves, look down on games and anime, and always feel that movies are superior to others. It's uncomfortable not to adapt, and often the skin of the original book actually tells its own story, and the result is generally very crotch-pulling. For example, the live-action Dragon Ball in 2009 made countless viewers vomit dung, and the box office reputation was almost deserved. How many fans of Dragon Ball are there? All over the world. Do you still need to adapt? How many pounds and tails are you? The adaptation of Nala's crotch is even worse than New Dragon Ball, filmed in 1991. In Eric's opinion, although the New Dragon Ball did not obtain the copyright and was a violation, it was the best of all Dragon Ball live-action adaptations. This time, MGM must give a sincere gift to Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball fans around the world, and he has thought of several characters. For example, Marzafako's Samuel L. Jackson is very suitable for the great demon king of Vic, and Arnold Wasru, who plays Immortan in The Mummy, can play Tianjin Rice. Morita Noriyuki plays the Turtle Immortal, which is definitely much stronger than Chow Yun-fat, and the ghost knows why Chow Yun-fat was chosen to play the Turtle Immortal, the wordless casting, ruining the original work. Jay Cho can play the role of Yamucha T. God, and his appearance is quite consistent, and Eric promised him to give him a role. So far, the prototype of Lionheart has gradually been completed, bringing together excellent film and television dramas and animations from all over the world. Coupled with the film libraries of MGM, New Line, DreamWorks, Lionsgate, and other companies, with the works accumulated by Marvel over the years, plus ace self-made dramas. If you open Lionheart.com and search for the overall number of films, you will find that it has reached an exaggerated 2W+. The depth may not be enough, but the thickness must be enough for fans of all tastes to find their favorites in it. Eric is ready to have a good time with the big 6 companies and TV stations. And with the crazy advertising of Lionheart.com, the social influence and popularity soon stirred, and the discussion about this new website and new model was endless. Eric was also interviewed by YouTube and Yahoo. Yes, I think as the internet evolves, the future will shift more and more of people's attention away from televisions and towards more portable mobile devices. Just like mobile phones are evolving very fast, and there have been countless versions in just a few years, and I think in the near future, with the development of smartphones, watching movies on mobile phones will become a big trend. And that was when people, especially young people, were ditching the TV, and I call them cord cutters, i.e. no longer paying for cable TV. Their interest will shift more to the internet. Walking, chatting, drinking coffee, they can see whatever they want, and that's what Lionheart is going to do. Although he had communicated the problem in advance, the host still looked at him with some surprise, which was no different from the statement a few days ago, which was equivalent to declaring war on major TV stations. The host's face was serious. "Mr. Cooper, what do you think is the difference between a weekly TV series and a one-time release?" Eric put the pros and cons of the two forms on the table and added at the end, "Binge watching? I call this new term a binge watching. What Lionheart wants to do is to lead the trend and lead a trend of binge watching. Let the audience watch what they want to see, watch as long as they want. At the same time, we also welcome screenwriters, directors, actors, and any good projects can come to us. Everything is for the audience. That's our dream."